Welcome to the latest edition of our AT Kearney Procurement and Analytics Solutions The Wave of the Future podcast series. I'm Helen Clegg, and I'm delighted to have Tanya Seary as my guest today. Tanya is a procurement professional who has founded three businesses: The Faculty, a procurement consultancy based in Melbourne, Australia; The Source, a recruitment agency aimed at the procurement sector and also based in Melbourne; and most recently, Tanya founded Procurious, a social media networking site for procurement, supply chain and logistics professionals. Tanya joins me from London, where she's recently located to. Today we're discussing social media for procurement. Tanya, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this topic. So let's start with the first question. Tanya, we're surrounded by social media today. Companies are using social media to advertise, obtain free market research, and answer customer inquiries and complaints. However, my impression is that procurement professionals haven't embraced social media as much as they could. What are your thoughts?
I don't think procurement professionals haven't embraced social media. They just haven't been visible, probably, in the traditional social media spheres. And I don't necessarily think they've been presented with the right platforms either. When we were developing the concept of Procurious, we found that procurement professionals feel like outsiders on LinkedIn. So it's probably too broad, and it really fails to identify a community for the profession. So I guess apart from a couple of standout groups such as Procurement Professionals, which I think has over 275,000 members, there wasn't really an online community for the profession. So I guess, that's why we've started Procurious, which is an online social network for the profession, specifically for the profession. And we were really thinking initially that this would be the sort of place that the next generation of procurement up-and-comers would really be attracted to. But really, we've had widespread interest. Over 2,000 members have already signed up from over 70 countries. So they're probably the early adopters of the group. And they're coming back. About 50% of those are coming back every week. But, not everyone wants to post or contribute, but they like to read. So maybe we're just a little bit shy. We're more voyeurs, and before we comment on something, we really want to make sure that we know what we're talking about.
Tanya, tell me a little bit more about Procurious. You've mentioned that it's really a niche-specific network aimed at the procurement profession. And I know from a T-Mobile survey that was done in 2012 that respondents saw the greatest prospects for secure and specialized social networks rather than using the sort of big sort of social sites like Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. So what else does Procurious offer someone?
We did a lot of research when we developed this, plus the sort of 15 years I've been in the procurement profession and understanding the challenges and joys of being a professional. We decided that we would offer four main services to our community. So the number one thing that differentiates Procurious from maybe all the other procurement websites is that we allow people to network. So if you're a category manager in Pennsylvania that's managing this unique category in a unique company in a unique industry, you could probably find someone else in the world who's managing exactly the same situation. So it allows people around the world to connect with each other, and I think that's a really powerful tool for any procurement professional. The other thing we offer that's quite different is online training in really bite-sized chunks. So you can download 3 to 5 minutes on any topic, just to, as a little refresher or something to do on your commute to work or what have you. We offer forums so people can actually track and respond on specific procurement-related topics. And then we have a news service, but a lot of publications out there have a news service. So we're trying to develop something that's really a one-stop shop for the procurement professional and help them get connected and get ahead, advance their career.
Well, it sounds good. But there's one thing I want to come back to that we haven't really touched on, and that's risk. And I know risk is something that procurement professionals are sort of, really understand because of the role they play. So again, just touching on this T-Mobile survey that I found that was done in 2012, one of the comments that came out of that was that I think it was one third of procurement managers who responded to this survey believe that the risks of using social networks were unacceptably high. So, what are your thoughts around risk and social media?
Look, I agree with you. I mean, we wouldn't be procurement professionals if we weren't concerned about risk. And, to be honest, I think things have probably moved a lot in the last 2 years when you think about the prevalence of Yammer in organisations, increased use of LinkedIn and Twitter even in the last 2 years. I think people are becoming increasingly comfortable and understanding that, if you do commit something to any forum, it's a publicly available document. So you have to own everything that you write and be conscious that that is a public document. So I think professionals around the world are getting more and more used to that. But I mean, I actually feel like there's a greater risk to procurement professionals of not being involved in social media. One of the things I love about the profession is this 360-degree aspect to the role. We have to be concerned about not just our supplier network, but our shareholders, the community, as well as our internal customers. And a fantastic way to keep abreast of all those issues is via social media. Twitter is a fantastic tool for keeping in touch with not only world news, natural disasters, supply chain disruptions, but also the thought leaders and what's happening. And I always say to someone, it doesn't matter where you are, you're in sales. And if you're stuck in the elevator with your CEO, what better way of a morning to be able to say, hey, did you hear about that volcano in, the South Pacific? How do you think that's going to impact, our importation of X? That's a fairly impressive conversation to have at 8:05 in the morning.
Right, and it's interesting to hear your thoughts on the benefits of social media and leveraging them for things like news, like real-time news, just as you mentioned about, supply chain disruptions or product recalls or news about suppliers that you want to keep tabs on. You might be thinking about changing a supplier so you could sort of follow them. And then also, I think you mentioned when you were talking about your own network, Procurious, about, networking and connecting. And for me, that's really important as well, and building those relationships and engaging with suppliers and just keeping updated on what they're doing. But Tanya, any other sort of benefits that you see for procurement professionals through using social media?
Well, look, I think that, as a professional, as an individual, increasing your profile in a very credible, considered way just has multiple benefits. I mean, I think that you will become more respected by your suppliers and your internal peers if you're seen as someone who has a view, who has a large external network, because let's face it, knowledge is still power. And the more people you're connected with who can share knowledge of what's happening in the market, the more valuable the information you can provide to your organisation and make decisions. So I just think it's incredibly powerful and incredibly important for everyone to be connected with, the audiences that impact them and their roles.
And Tanya, you were talking there about increasing one's profile and the benefit that has. So what advice would you give to a procurement professional who hasn't really yet ventured much into the social media space? Any tips and tricks from your perspective?
Well, yes, first of all, they needn't be afraid. You're not going to get in trouble by having a bit of a dabble on social media. It's fairly safe. But the main advice I would give if someone's a bit overwhelmed by this social media phenomena is to get a millennial mentor. That's certainly what I've had. I've had 2 or 3 millennials over the last couple of years really guide and support and encourage me and really teach me how this area works. And really, if I didn't have those mentors, I really wouldn't be a true believer or as active in social media as I am today. So that's the first. Well, don't be afraid, but then get yourself a millennial mentor. I think also have the confidence that you actually do have some incredibly unique and valuable information to share with people. We all have fascinating jobs, and they're very specific jobs, managing categories in unique companies in unique industries. So there's probably only a handful of people like you in the whole world. that once again are managing that category in that company and you'll be learning all sorts of things every day that the people around the world would be interested to learn about. So I think have a little bit more confidence that what you are doing is very interesting and that others will be interested in. Fourthly, I think you've really got to make social media part of your daily routine. You've got to put aside at least 15 minutes a day to get onto LinkedIn, Twitter. We'd like everyone to be on Procurious, obviously. Reach out to some new people, like or favourite a post, comment on a discussion, retweet something or share an article, or even, once you get used to it, write some blogs and share some learnings. And I think you'll be surprised how many people are interested in what you have to share.
Right, and Tanya, I would also add that it is definitely worth venturing into the world of social media. Just from the AT Kearney perspective, we had one of our consultants publish a post on LinkedIn recently, and it received over 70,000 views in just 4 days. And I know from that post he gained around 250 new LinkedIn followers. And we as a company do leverage social media as part of our marketing communication strategy, and it's great. I mean, I use it for news gathering and for supplementing research as well. So it's definitely something that I don't think can be ignored. So Tanya, as we come to the end of this podcast, any final thoughts from you on the benefits of social media to the procurement profession?
Yeah, look, I just think that a successful procurement career really hinges on relationships. And once again, those relationships are sort of 360 degrees around you. And that social media really allows you to stay connected with people, communicate with people, and connect with people who, would otherwise be impossible to both find and relate to. So I think that it really needs to be something that's seriously considered as part of your career development and sort of a secret to your success.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts. It's incredibly interesting to hear what you have to say about social media and obviously about your own social network, Procurious, aimed at procurement professionals. And just really to summarize some of the main points that resonated for me as we've been talking today, things that you mentioned were we live in a very connected world, and really your comment about procurement professionals putting themselves at risk if they don't leverage the power of social media is very pertinent, and I think it needs to be taken on board. I love your term millennial mentor. I really like that. So people out there, procurement people out there who haven't yet ventured into the social media space, get yourself a millennial mentor and don't be afraid, because I really do believe, like you, Tanya, that everyone has something to say, and they should, like you said, focus on their uniqueness. So on that note, Tanya, thank you so much for being my guest today. I'd also like to thank our production engineer, Tom Klein. Thank you for listening to this edition of The Wave of the Future. If you have any comments on this podcast or have a suggestion for a podcast topic, please share your thoughts via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @ATKPAS. This has been an AT Kearney Procurement and Analytics Solutions podcast production. Join us again soon for our next Wave of the Future podcast.